Hey there everyone, welcome back to the Main Street Garden. Today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about protecting Macrophylla hydrangeas in the spring swinging temps. They are one of those plants that kind of wake up early, and then if a late frost comes and nips those buds, it really sets them back. So that's what we're going to be working on today. There's a few different things going on with my patch here that I'm going to point out, and we're going to hopefully correct those so we can see some blooms this year. Without further ado, let's dive in. For those of you who have been with me since last fall, you'll remember that I planted a hedge of Let's Dance Skyview Macrophylla hydrangeas, and I've been a little bit concerned about them over the winter just because in Nebraska we have a troubled past with macrophyllas. But if you look down here at the base, you can see right about there is a green spot. Let me zoom in for you. So that is really exciting. Sorry it's not focusing, but that means that these guys have technically made it through the winter, but we need to make sure that those buds make it through to spring. As would be expected on macrophyllas, I'm 99% sure all of the upper wood on these is dead. But as is a general rule with all macrophyllas, you never want to prune this top portion until you're 100% sure it's dead. So we're going to be waiting until a little bit further into April and maybe even the beginning part of May until we see those bottom shoots on these guys continue to grow out. This guy here is going gangbusters. So there's a nice juicy bud right there. And then there's another one right here. I haven't gotten around to this other side. Would I be so lucky to have a third? I do see one that, oh, there's a lot of them in there. That's awesome. This guy here is a little bit more behind, but I did check all of these and everybody seemingly has some green at the base. So what are some things that we're going to address today in this patch of hydrangeas? The first thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that these guys are kind of snuggled in to ride through April. We're in Nebraska, let's be honest. We're known for having massive temperature swings. For instance, today it's about 84 degrees, believe it or not. And then later in the week, it's looking like we might be having frost again. So we want to make sure that these guys are kind of insulated from those massive temperature swings. If I'm being completely honest, macrophyllas have not done the best in my garden. I've tried the Endless Summer series, and I've also tried the LA Dreamin' Macrophylla hydrangea. So these guys are kind of my last hope, shall we say. I am fairly confident with the research that I've done on these particular varieties because they bloom sooner and on new wood. So that kind of helps bridge the proverbial gap on hopefully what will be an amazing hedge of blue hydrangeas this year in my garden. So today's plan on this hedge is to go ahead and kind of shore up the soil line, bring it up to the crown here because there was just a little bit of erosion or heaving that happened over the winter time. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the ground with a fresh layer of compost, and that way these guys will be snuggled in hopefully until May when they can flourish. These are the products that I'm going to be using today. Normally for topping off the soil, I would generally use a compost, but today I don't have any on hand. Alternately, you could basically just take garden soil and put it around the plants, but I wanted something with just a little bit more organic matter to go around the plants to amend the soil a little bit further. The mulch that we're going to be using is this Timberline brown mulch. I had done some research lately on mulch because traditionally I haven't actually used it on my garden, and this is the year that I'm going to start kind of transitioning into trying some new things because I want to work on adding soil fertility and water retention to all these flower beds, and mulch is one way that we can do that. A little trick with the mulch here is that I chose specifically this timberline brown mulch. After doing some research, this has a lot of different lengths and sizes within the product, so that way, if you're like Nebraska, this mulch kind of knits together so that the wind has less chances of blowing it away. The same thing kind of goes when you get those heavy rainstorms. Theoretically, this should knit together nicely so that way it won't blow away. The other benefit is that when you have those finer particles, they will degrade faster, adding more nutrients to your soil. We had a little visitor. I am a fan of squirrels. Thankfully, they don't really affect my garden so far, so I'm happy to see him, but he's getting a little bit salty with me right now. While the squirrel is scolding me here, I wanted to show you something amazing that I'm seeing on this secondary plant here. Over here, check that out. There's that green bud. And then I saw a few other buds that were actually further up the stem. It might have been right here I can see one's green. And then there is another little green guy right there. So that means that this particular plant, I'm not sure about the rest here, but this particular plant did not die all the way back to the ground, which is a huge surprise. And that's very exciting to me. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to water it in. So there we have it. We went ahead and put down a layer of potting soil. Again, compost would have been preferable to that, but it was what I had on hand right now. And then we put a layer of wood mulch over this. I'm really excited to see what these guys do this spring, so I think that this might be the little push they needed to finish the race and make it into the new season. Arguably, it was a little bit short-sighted on my behalf when I planted them last fall. I should have been putting down this bark mulch, but hindsight is 2020. I would probably, if I was redoing this again, I would do it in spring and not fall, just because it gives them the entire summer to root in. But with the budding activity we're already seeing, I think that it's really promising so far this season, and I'm excited for that. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Main Street Garden. If you liked this video, go ahead and like and subscribe to my channel. Until next time, happy gardening.